That means those filters were used for 18 years. And there's going to be a report coming here soon that'll go out to this board that shows that those filter life expectancies are much shorter than 18 years. So I just want to point out to the board the things that's happening at the water plant to improve the water quality, leaving clarifier number 2. Now in that filters 3 and 4, was number 4 filter, Todd, that had a hole in the sidewalk. The stainless steel plate will go in its place to fix it. And then they'll be back, was it September 12th? September 2nd.
September 2nd to make that repair and to finish the filter media change up for 4. We'll put it back in service probably the next day. And then we'll be back with filter 5.
Filters 5 and 6.
And only one clarifier has been working.
2 clarifiers now.
Until this project was completed with the new plant, right?
Clarifier 3 was put back in service about 10 months ago.
Now, 10 months ago, so what I'm saying is, for years, there was one clarifier.
Clarifier no.
Clarifier 2 was working.
It was.
It just went down. It went down after 3 went back in service.
Okay.
Yeah. You gotta have 2 clarifiers working or you can't keep up with production. But the good news is that the plant through, we'll get into our water losses way down. But with water loss way down, our plant can produce 2.2 million gallons a day, and we're only need to produce 1.3. So there's 0.9 million gallons a day that we don't need to produce. And that ultimately leads to a cost savings, but it also opens the door for us to get all the wholesale water if we chose to do so. So there's opportunity there, and I can talk about that later. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The leak detection program identified 22 new leaks in July. We fixed a total of 37 leaks in the distribution system in July. Estimated amount of $2.2 million. Villa number 1 pump and motor was sent out for repair. I've got some quotes in. We're going to get some more quotes for those, but we're looking at a little over $18,000 for the turbine pump. And there's an option for $5,500 for the rebuild of that motor that was in there, and then $10,000 for a new 75 horsepower motor that was in there.
Now, the thing that's important to remember here is the Bella Road is the booster system that feeds customers up there, but also feeds the prison through our joint operating contract with Pressburg City Utility Commission. So it's important that we maintain that because that generates about $35,000 a month for us in revenue through the prison through renegotiation of that contract. So it's important that we stay on top of that and get that work done so we continue to satisfy that need and generate that revenue.
And while we're waiting on that pump to be inspected and took apart, to get those quotes back, we actually Friday had the other motor go down on us in there. Friday, we were able to get a reman pump Monday of this week, and we got that back installed. But yeah, it's an issue with that pump station, especially providing water up there in the grid.
We'll get those quotes over to me, and so I can get them out to the board members so we keep the board up to speed on what we're doing and why. Of course, this all falls under the improved maintenance budget that we have. Okay.
That auto ground pump station, we have a small jockey pump that feeds up to the flower shop and everything on 645 up here. That pump was a little bit undersized, plus it was getting to the point where it was overheating and kicking the overloads out. So we had to we ended up installing a new 5 horsepower pump in its place. Fill the bladder tank with proper PSI and install a new pressure switch in that station. We also switched from regular single phase power over to 3-phase power for that pump. We've been working on replacing the signage at all the pump station and tank sites. Preventive maintenance is completed at the pump stations and tank sites. Feeder cave pump station, we got that station where it's the auto restart now. Once power
what's the total amount for, that's in this, because we spent 100,537, of this 100,537, is 76,000 of it in that, what's been spent to date? So, we spent $76,000 during the flood, that came out of this maintenance budget, is that right?
Correct. Yes, this money will be, that money will go back in your maintenance account, which will offset that $100,000. Will increase that $100,000 by that amount.
Back to 176,000, so then I'll have about 45% of my budget remaining, because I spent 100,000, about 76,000 remaining.
Correct.
So I have about 45% remaining to finish out the rest of the year.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted the board to be up to speed on the math.
If insurance pays out, it also deposits in that.
Yes, yes. So, although on paper it doesn't look pretty, there's a story behind it, and I think it's important everybody understands what that story is.
It's worth noting on the insurance, so if it pays out, right now, what we spent to date only has these stations back in operation. So the money that comes in, we put the second units back in most of the stations, which is not being completed.
Right. Insurance, it's apples and oranges as far as spent versus what the insurance bill will be. All right, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Next couple pages here are your detailed transactions of those accounts. Following that, you have your leak repairs throughout the county. As you can see, they're kind of scattered throughout. We've been leaking quite a bit here in the past 2 months. Following that, your MOR report. Like I said, we didn't have any violations for July. Following that, you've got your water loss report. The water loss came in at 46%, 46.03%.
Let's talk about that for a minute. So, I know when I got on this board in September, it was at 71% water loss. So if you think about that, for every 100 gallons that we were generating and treating, 29 gallons made it to a tap and 71 went in the ground. You know, when I got on this board, I really struggled with those numbers. And since that time, we went from 71%, last month we were 45.0.34, if I remember right.
Yes.
44.
Yeah. And this month we're at 46.03, but what the story that this number doesn't tell is, in that 46.03, because we don't have a good way to measure how much flushing we did during the groundwater incident, period, I think some of that flush water is in this water loss number. I really think the true number is what it was last month, 44.45% roughly. But we had a lot of flushing around the county to do due to the groundwater that we had.
We've already fixed over 40 leaks this month to date. As of last Friday, we had fixed 40 leaks in August. So that plus the flushing, I think we should see a bigger pickup on that number.
And in eastern Kentucky, so people know, in eastern Kentucky, the average water loss in eastern Kentucky is 30%. Why? Because in eastern Kentucky, it's high pressure systems. We gotta pump the water to get it to the top of the mountains, right? So instead of having 150 PSI like you have in western Kentucky, that has a 15% loss, in eastern Kentucky, it's 30% because you're operating closer to 300 PSI, pounds per square inch. So double pressure in eastern Kentucky, you're gonna have the same leak, you'll have double the water loss if you follow Pascal's law, for example. But that aside, I want to share that with you because it's important that we continue to get the water loss down. Because if people want to know, how are you working to save us money? Well, part of the answer is we have to reduce our water loss. That's part of the answer. It's not the whole answer, but it's part of the answer. And we're working towards that goal. Okay, thank you. Toby, go ahead.
From there, it's just your leak adjustments.
Okay, board, have you had an opportunity to look at the leak adjustments? Assuming you have, I'd like to get a motion to approve those leak adjustments. Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And for the general public that don't know, on the leak adjustments, it's in our rules and regulations that you can, over 12-month rolling average, so once every 12 months, whether you do it in May or it doesn't matter what month, So therefore, you're not paying this gigantic bill for a leak. And again, that's $2 that you pay for that. So I wanted folks to be aware, so we're gonna talk about that a little bit more as we get into the meeting about water, about leaks and cost and those kinds of things. I think it's important that folks know that policy. It's part of the news regulation. All right, so let's move on. So now we're at, review and consideration of pay bills. Did I get it right this time?
Yeah, I didn't see that in my packet. Was it a second email?
That's not over here, but
It's not part of the digital packet either.
it's not sewer, but, it's in the water.
Okay,
It's
so,
not in the digital either, did you get it online? I don't see it.
yeah, I don't have it. I don't have any. So,
Could you email it now?
Yeah. yeah, we absolutely need to have it. When you go through it, it's important that we review it and approve, look at it and approve what we need to approve. We want to pay our bills on time. So that's critical. But while we're waiting for that to happen, I'm gonna go ahead and, ask our board attorney, Brian, go ahead and address us on the, water legal, issues and concerns and things you've been working on.
Okay, we've got several things to discuss. As the board is aware, we're required to file submittal to the Public Service Commission to approve the lease of the trucks. They have submitted a request for information, and Todd and his staff have done a great job getting me that information that we need to reply to those requests, and that's on my desk in draft form, and should be ready to go out well within the deadline by tomorrow or Thursday. And I'll be forwarding that to Todd and Tim's signature as soon as we get it in complete form. I anticipate sometime tomorrow afternoon. The motion to close the case, I've not made any progress on that. We've had harder fires to try to put out than that one. So hopefully someone else will deal with that issue. The tariff revisions, the non-recurring charges, that is in draft form to submit to the PSC for approval. I know that Todd and his staff have been overwhelmed, but I've been waiting on Todd to get back with me with the justification for the costs, which is a form that has to be filled out and the numbers plugged in. And when I get that back, we'll be ready to file it with the PSC for approval.
Yeah, and there's gonna be a lot of discussion tonight around that. But it's part of the legal protocol. If you remember the special meeting on August 12th, I said, first the board will approve it, then it's gotta go through a legal process, then it's gotta come back to this board. And then after that, it's gotta go to PSC, and then, as part of the PSC thing, we've also gotta do all the right notification, all things that we can touch on.
Right,
At the same time, and all that, but it's important first, and that's why in a special meeting, we said, okay, board, if you approve this, it's gotta go through a legal review process internally first. And there's quite a bit of paperwork, and that paperwork that Brian's alluded to, that paperwork is specific to every cost increase that they're asking about.
It is.
And so it's two forms that you fill out, plus you have to turn over a lot of financial information as well. Now, I'll get into that a little deeper when we get into the tariff discussion.
Okay. Next item is the Otto Brown easement. The Otto Brown, as most of you probably know, the Otto Brown pump station is at the end of Eli Road. That's old Route 3. And it literally is built right in the middle of the old Route 3, right at the end of Eli Road. So, I and Melissa Phelps have searched and searched trying to find some documentation that we actually have an easement for that, and we have not found anything to date. We have communicated, or Melissa primarily has communicated with the highway department, and they have sent us some maps, and they tell us that this section of Old Kentucky 3 was transferred to the county for operations and maintenance purposes. And I replied to that email saying, well, what's that? Does the county have the authority to give us an easement on this particular piece of property? They haven't replied yet. And
they do see that it was transferred to the county.
What they said was Old Kentucky 3 was transferred to the county for operations and maintenance purposes.
Ownership is a difference, and that's why Brian came back and said, well, does that mean they can issue an easement, or do we have to go to the state for an easement? That's the real question. Who do you go to?
What was the date of that transfer, operation and maintenance agreement?
Oh, God, that was a long time ago, because before you were born, actually. I don't remember the date, but it was back in the 80s. So that's where we're at with that. We're working on it. Melissa Phelps has been very helpful. We've kind of tag teamed on trying to get this done. We're still working on it. Everything's a process. Last meeting, you directed me to send the letter to the insurance company about our flood laws. They replied to those letters, and I think Todd, his group is working on the response to those letters to the insurance company. And I'll let Todd, maybe Tim, address that more fully with you when they get into it. Finally, I understand that we need an easement for the landowners where the turkey tank now is, and Todd and Tim and I have had some exchange trying to figure out exactly who that is. And we think we know who the owners are now, so when the board authorizes me to do so, I'll be happy to try to connect with those people and see if we can get an easement.
And that easement is for the temporary tank. It's just, the temporary tank's gonna be put there, so, and the turkey tank project is to restore that tank and new valve wall and other stuff. But they gotta set a temporary tank, and that, where they gotta set it is not on our property. It's on the adjoining property. So we need an easement agreement for us to set that tank, even temporarily there.
And it just has to be a temporary easement, it doesn't have to be a permanent.
That's right.
I think in Tim's vernacular, we call it a construction easement.
That's right.
But of course, we have to get those folks to agree. I don't see any reason why they could not, but obviously we'll deal with that when we're ready to pursue. That's really all I have, unless anybody has questions.
No, thank you, Brian. I appreciate all your good work. I know, Lord, Brian's been really busy with a lot of stuff that we've done, you doing, and appreciate the good work, Brian. Thank you. So with that, board members, you should have received, via email, the bills. And as I'm going down through them, please take a moment and go down through them as well.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Line 24 to 25.
Fork Auto Ground Booster Station and line replacement. I went through the design drawings and marked them up, sent them back to Bell Engineering. I'm still waiting on the electrical controls drawings to come. I'll review those. They said they're about 2 weeks out. I get those, I'll get them through and mark them up and send them back. Last night I went through a 586-page spec book, marked it up, sent it back to Bell. Bell's reviewed my request and they're gonna make all those changes. The issues I had with the spec book is it had Big Sandy as owner, and sign off as owner, and that's being changed. There were some other minor things, but everything looked good from that perspective. Lead service line inventory, we're waiting on the state here, right, Todd? They need to respond back to us on next steps.
Yeah, we're just waiting to see what they're gonna put in the next lead cover rule, and we know what's in it.
Right. But we've got money provided to us through a grant through the state to address what next steps are.
Correct.
The next steps, just so the board knows, what next step means is I think the state's gonna come out and mandate that we identify for the unknowns. I think we have around 785 business or homes that's unknown where their lawns are. They'll pay us to go figure out what it is. That'll be the next step and report that. But that's what I expect the state to come back and say. On the cold water line improvement project, that is, actually, we're having a kickoff meeting, this Thursday with, Prime AE to do a scope review and to kick that off. The board's already approved me to enter into a PSA with them, but we need to have a scoping meeting first so that we can do the exhibit 1 as part of the professional service agreement. And so that'll happen, Thursday, and then we'll move forward with getting that project in design phase. And that's a big project. The Route 40 East Water Improvement Project, that design is probably 99% complete. Went through the drawings, marked them up, provided meter information, some GIS information today. But that project is ready to go out for bid, and we would expect that project, the bid's going to be pretty quick. They'll turn that around in about a month. Now, one thing I have asked Todd to do is we need to give the public notification of when that's going to happen. Because there's a section of 40 East, Blackwall Road, that's going to impact customers. And per the contract and the spec documents, the outages have to be minimal. So all the work has to be done, tie-ins for the last piece. But I want to give folks heads up, hey, we're going to be doing this work, it's planned for this time frame, it's going to take this long, that kind of thing, so that way they have proper notification of what to expect.
It's a real problem in school, you know,
Yeah.
because when they were fixing it up there.
So the way the work is structured, all the work is done, all the taps are done, the meter tie-ins are the last piece per location. So you do per meter tie-in per quick. So I don't think it's gonna be that painful. But again, we need to provide proper notification. Water system improvements telemetry project, that project is near complete. We've had some issues with line of sight on the telemetry, that's being worked. We got the new check valves in and they were wrong, and we'll send them back and they're gonna send us the right ones. So Bell Engineering's working through all that, and that project is near complete. The raw water intake, this is a project, as everybody knows, has been a thorn in this district side since 2019. Bell Engineering has had Shoemaker on site doing work. They've got the work as far as they can go. When they measured the cables, 4 of the 14 cables tested bad. And so what does that mean? When you measure a cable, you put a known voltage through it, and if voltage bleeds out, because you measure on the other end, if it bleeds out, the cable's bad. And normally cables are bad if you nick them, or it's these cables are laid on the ground. But because it wasn't done per NEC code, they're going to replace it. They're going to redo it. It's not a cost to us. That's a big Sandy issue, big Sandy Gap issue. So Bell Engineering's working that piece out, but as soon as that's done, then we'll be ready to test. That's the part. So I'm expecting, within the next 2 weeks, they'll get the cables changed out, and I'm expecting a test period after that. But I'm gonna warn this board, I think, when they go to test it, there's gonna be a problem between the telemetry and the HMI computer interface at the water plant. So the water plant, everything's on a emergency backup generators, it's in design phase. I went through design drawings, marked them up, sent them back. I have not gotten a spec book on it yet. And the reason why is because what we're trying to do on the emergency generators is not only get the 3 emergency generators for which FEMA said they would fund for the $1.342 million, but also what we're trying to do is get all of our other booster stations set up to where you can plug an emergency generator into them and provide temporary power. So we're working through that process, and as soon as I get an answer from FEMA, because I went back to FEMA and we've asked the question, can we add to the scope? Not increase the money, so I think we can do it all for the same money. But can we add to the scope and not hurt us? And they've got to answer that question. Old Highway 3 water line replacement, that's a grant that was just awarded to us not too long ago, for which this board approved for Fahi to be the admin and Prime AE to be the engineer of record. We have a project kickoff meeting this Thursday on that project, and then after that meeting, the board approved me to sign a PSA with them to start that work. Then on the water master plan, the DLG ARC application, it's finished today, and it's going to get signed tomorrow and get submitted. That is $250,000 through a $50,000 grant from Thrive Coalition through a Toyota grant. As seed money, and then $200,000 from DLG ARC funding. So I expect that approval process for that application to go fairly quickly, and I expect that by January we will be well into our master plan. And for those in the audience and the public don't know, PSE actually requires, Public Service Commission requires districts to have a master plan. What a master plan does is it identifies all your infrastructure, the condition of all your infrastructure, and then lays forth a plan on how you're going to improve and fix your problems. That's what a master plan does. So that's important. So as you can see, right now in the district we have, to my knowledge, the highest number of projects we've ever had. We've got $18.2 million in projects right now. And I expect that number to grow double by this time next year of projects. And I'm saying that based off of the KY W Waters program applications that we've submitted, and I'll get into later in this meeting. But I want the good people of Martin County to know we recognize the problems we have in our infrastructure. We're working to fix them. So that's, Todd, did I leave anything out? I know I'm pretty quick through a lot of it.
No, I don't think so. Did provide some information today on the whole Route 3 program. So I think they'll be there for this meeting on Thursday.
Section of all Route 3, does this replace the water line?
Section will start, there's a valve right before you get to the Old Country Market. It'll go from there all the way out.
To the Martin County line?
Yes. I mean, I don't think the funding that is available gets that far, so this will probably be a phase as we go. So we'll have that be part of this.
It's 6,000 linear feet.
Okay.
We'll get as far as we can, and then we'll have to approve, go for more funding at a later time to keep extending.
Okay. So that's capital projects report. Board members, any questions on that? There's a lot going on in that light. So that covers the project updates. Board, I owe you an updated SIP list. We approved one for July 28th SIP list, and that's what we worked off of for the Kentucky W Waters program. But I need to update it now because and refresh. So that's on my list of things to get done. And you have what you've approved, so nothing to really talk about there. So with that, ready to get into old business. AWR provide master meeting delivery and construction schedule.
Okay, so like I said, the register has 3 or 4 inch meters we're at consolidated now. So we'll probably pick them up sometime this week and schedule to get those remaining 3 or 4 inches changed in the next couple of weeks. Some meters from this project have been ordered. I can't remember the number, I think it's
master meters are used to identify leaks. So if we know how many customers we have on a branch circuit, we know what their consumption is off of their meters. If we can measure what we're feeding through that line, the delta between what they're consuming and what this meter reads is how much we're leaking. That tells us where to look for leaks. So without master meters, it's kind of hard. There's technology to find those leaks, and we're applying that technology now. But this will help us, and we're doing all this under the same budget, the $2 million grant that McCool is kind enough to help us get through KIA to make this happen. Okay. AWR provide raw water intake project update. Todd, I touched on that. Is there anything else you want to?
The only thing that I had prepared was we did have built the structure to provide protection for the foot on the suction side of the pump. You get a chance to go out there and look, see what it is, but that's been complete.
Yeah. Well, he's talking about there's a 12-inch flex hose that comes from the flowing intake and goes up to the pump. And the contractor never built no support on that hose. 12 inches of hose suspended 20 feet in the air is a heavy load on the volute of the intake of that pump. And what happens is it does this to that volute. And that shaft running through that pump does this. And what happens when you run for a while? It wipes out the bearings and the seals. And that's a no-no. So that problem was fixed before they ever fired the fire department.
We're still renting a pump and
Yes.
finding the fuel.
Yes.
We anticipate that in the next month to be ended.
It'll end once we fill, we get commissioned on the other pump.
I said a month ago it was going to be gone in a month. and I
We've
thought-
heard a month for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, so that's why I prefaced the board when they fix the electrical on the wire leads. I still think there's one more step we're gonna have to address, that's controls.
We are running the pump last, which is reducing the diesel consumption.
It's just looking like it's gonna be a pretty dry fall so far.
Yeah. We're now down to like 3 days a week. We're running 24/7, and the other 2 days we just run 8 hours a day. So, and we was running 24/7, 7 days a week. So,
We don't have time over there.
No.
no, they won't put one back there right now. They're kind of refusing to put it back in the same
This is
spot
a
as
flood.
I understand. So are we buying off-road diesel?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, Todd, flood damage infrastructure status, Kentucky Emergency Management Funding update.
Yeah, on the water side, I did get confirmation today that the money on the water side was obligated to $76,828.73. They said that will be positive within the week.
And that's gonna go, board members, let me get a motion, board members, I want a motion to consider and approve that those monies go back into the budgets they came out of. That makes sense to me. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
That is for that was what for the category B
Yes.
projects. The other ones are still ongoing. They had an engineer come out a few weeks ago, FEMA did, and they are putting together cost estimates to compare to what our engineer provided. I'm still waiting to see comparables and what they're actually going to fund those projects.
Yeah, so folks in the audience and those watching, category B projects at FEMA are those projects for which you spent money so that you can continue to operate while you work through the problem of the damage. That's what category B is. We spent $76,000 in change keeping services to everybody through all this flood. And that's what category B is to reimburse us for that. That is not to fix the flood damage. That's just to allow us to operate. Okay, thank you, Todd. All right, AWR update board on insurance claims, Todd.
Okay, so we've been working, as Brian said, real hard with the insurance company, pushing them hard. So right now the brokers, there's portion of our expenses are gonna be those pumps and motors. So it's good we're on that, about $5,000 of that. And they're also looking at, doing some, going through the professional liability insurance policy that we have, to anything that wasn't covered in the insurance, that would be covered under that. If it's something that is deemed that wasn't covered in insurance, AWR is committed to pay the deductible for that.
And that came from, the insurance response to Brian's letters. And in full disclosure to everyone, what we learned through this whole process is we had assets, infrastructure, that hadn't been identified and provided to the insurance companies. And as such, AWR has stepped up and said, we will cover it under our policy, because the operator is required to provide GIS and asset locations. The operator being AWR in this case. So the district, the good people of Martin County, is not gonna suffer because of that. It's not going. All right. Thank you, Todd. Master service agreement status, that's on me, board. I need apology. I have not had time to get over to Brian's office, nor has Brian had time to see me if I had time to get over to Brian's office. Just a tremendous amount of stuff going on in the county, all good stuff, but, that's on me, and it's important because, you know, I drafted these master service agreements and to help save Brian time, and I'm not a lawyer, but I spend a lot of time in legal stuff. But I need to spend some time with Brian. But the reason why these master service agreements are so important is because we need to have agreements with companies like electrical firms, controls firms, mechanical firms, piping firms. So when we have emergencies, I can pick up the phone and call somebody and have them come and help us. You don't have to go through the whole legal aspect of trying to make all that happen. And what drove this, part of this was when we, on Old Highway 3, when we had that slide out there and it wiped out, 600 feet of line and took out, 100 customers?
About
300 customers. It's like, I need help. But that's on me. I will get it done. It's just, please bear with me as I go through the priorities. I'll provide the Flying DLG ARC, Kentucky W Waters applications updates. Good news is on Kentucky W Waters applications, all 11 applications were provided to KIA on Friday, this past Friday, the 22nd. I received an email yesterday that one particular attachment needed to be addressed, revised. Immediately revised it, sent it to KIA. They acknowledged it. It's the right application, or it's the right document they were looking for. It was an audit from 2020 for sanitation. They have went through our packet and very appreciative that we got it in a week early. But also they committed that that everything looked good, but they would also, if it was anything that they found over the next 6 weeks, that they would work with us to address it. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but I'll share with this board, because we got it in early, they'll do that. But if you get it in on the deadline date, the 29th, they don't. So, and I didn't know that. But, so we got 11 applications in, and for those of you that don't know, the Kentucky W Waters applications is a ton of work. I had no idea the amount of effort that went into that. But Todd will attest. Unbelievable the amount of work you got to put in for that. But it's okay. It's okay. It's important. I'm happy to say those 11 applications are worth $43 million to this district. The number one priorities for those projects for both water and sanitation is debt service. I want grants to pay off our debts. Because we get grants to pay off our debts. You know what that means? That means that we can afford to operate. That means that if something breaks, we can afford to fix it. But right now we can't. That's what that means. That's how that's so important to us. So those are number one on both. And then number two, going down the list is a myriad of projects. But it focuses on the problems in sanitation in Martin County. So on sanitation, for example, all of our lift stations in Martin County, in the 40 years I've been in this business, I've never seen anything this bad. Ever. Just terrible. But it focuses on sanitation and our immediate needs, and also on water and our immediate needs. But if we're blessed and all 11 projects get Wahee will administer this, these projects. The good news is it helps us fix our problems.
Martin County Concerned Citizen sent a letter of support, you didn't hear back whether they got it, but the letter of support should have been sent to Coffee, was sent to Coffee.
Oh, because
To show the community support.
yeah.
To show community support. So
Well, I got letters from,
I can send it to you.
please do, because it wasn't part of the packet, okay, because I reviewed all the packets.
Okay.
And because I didn't get it, I didn't include it. I didn't have it.
I think it was sent directly to Coffee.
But please send it to me, it's not too late, I can get it in. You know, we got letters of support from the judge, we got letters of support from the health department, we got letters of support from Bobby McCool, our rep, we got letters of support from our state senator, Senator Wheeler, all beautiful letters, excellent. And so, much appreciated, everybody did a ton of work on that, it was well done. And I firmly believe we're gonna score really well. Now, on the DLG ARC application, as I mentioned, that application's done, it's ready for signature. And it'll go in, it should go in tomorrow.
On the W Waters, you said there was 11 submitted. How many of those were for water and how many?
6 water, 5 sanitation.
And both of them included for payment of debt.
Number one, because debt service is a project.
But that was a project for water and sewer.
There's one project for water, there's one project for sanitation. Debt service was number one on both. Number one. And that debt service includes not only what we owe in arrears, but it also includes loans, bonds, anything that we're paying debt on that's taken away from our ability to reinvest back into our system is debt service.
And they funded applications like that the last cycle. I think I heard the city.
Yes.
City of Martin.
Yes.
That they got their debt.
Yes. You know, I'm prayerful that everything's going to go well. So moving on to other old business, consider a motion to select engineering services that authorize chairman to execute professional service agreement with board approved firms. So board members, as you know, we solicited for the water for engineering services, and Prime AE sent us a SOQ, statement of qualifications, and so did Nesbitt. Engineering sent those to us. I'm asking this board to approve for us to enter into an MSA, or it's actually PSA, professional service agreement with both firms, and here's why. And I'm not playing up one firm over the other. Their SOQs speak for themselves. Both of them are fully qualified. But here's my concern: is I want all of our eggs in one basket. And I think we're going to have so much work this time next year. We're going to need multiple firms working for us to get all this work done. Timely. So do I have a motion for both firms enter into a PSA with both firms?
I'll make that.
Do I have a second?
I'll say.
All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. AWR update, the board on status of clarifier number 2, repair and filters 3 and 4 media replacement. We already talked about that. Todd, is there anything more you want to add to that?
Now, another thing I'd add is,
so did we have a motion on that?
I'll make the motion that they solicit bids.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries. AWR update the board on the website content, update board secretary and treasurers for AWR website content. And how this all started, it's been a number of months back now, it seems like, but there's been a lot of water in the bridge since then. Actually went out to our website, and I looked at it, and commissioner information was wrong. I didn't see, board packets from past meetings. I didn't see, what I did see was the future board meeting agenda, for example. But the content, I was like, we need to work on getting information out to the public better. And our website is a good forum to do that. But we need somebody to sit down with AWR and go through the website and talk about what can we do to make it better.
When I looked at it, I thought that it had been updated.
Okay. Kathy updated it after we talked about it a few months ago for the new commissioners and put in their titles and stuff like that, but, and we still do put on the agendas. We have talked to Rural Water, which hosts our webpage, and they're supposed to get back with me, but as of now, there is no way for them to have storage for what we pay for right now for the whole agendas. So we're either gonna have to look at getting someone else to post it or find, they're supposed to get back with me, see if they can change that.
Could you at least keep the current? I wonder, not all old ones, but could you at least put the current, the whole package?
The whole board packet.
I've not tried to upload it, have you? We can try that, make sure the storage is there, I'm not sure if it's there, but I will check it.
What I'm asking for is board, I apologize, I don't have the time to take this on, but I really like for the board, one or two board members to sit with AWR and go through it and take on, let's get it updated and get more functional, to where we've got, information out for the public to draw from.
And we could also have these paper copies available, in the library or, I think,
Wherever.
that they can just have the availability to go, this is how, where you could go see the packet, in case it doesn't fit.
I prefer it to fit. I'm more of a digital person. I'm not big on going down to the library and look at a hard copy document. I'm thinking of convenience for people. But let's focus on the website and making it better for everybody. Websites aren't that expensive.
They're not, it's something I would prefer to be digitally ourselves, because it would be easier for us to manage, instead of having to worry about putting paper packets out, keeping them out, I'd rather just, we'll pay for all this time and energy would be worth updating our website information if it had to be.
Yeah, my wife and I run websites and we pay for them ourselves. What do we pay, about $300 or $400 a year? $300 or $400 a year?
300.
300?
For one.
In the big picture, it's not big money. And not that I'm volunteering her for any work, but she does website development.
So right now, it's under rural waters.
They
Yeah.
host it right now.
They host it with. Yeah. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at that, see what we can do to improve it, make it better. Okay. So moving off of that, AWR update the board on the easement agreement on file and timeline to turn over the list of board attorney to address. So here's what this is all about. If you recall, and it's been probably 2 months ago now, I asked the question, how many customers, because we have 3,450 ratepayers, right? The question I asked was, how many ratepayers do we have that we have easement agreements or don't have easement agreements with? And Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, you all did your due diligence and you came back, of the 3,450 ratepayers we have about 400 easement agreements. So there's 3,000 easement agreements we don't have.
We have about another, maybe 150 inactive agreements, do we still have them on file, but that's.
We'll keep them on file because those are we call perpetual agreements. Once they're agreed, they transfer. If you sell your house and you have an agreement, it goes with the sell the house. It's perpetual. But that aside, and where I'm going with all this is, Kentucky statute, and I'm not a lawyer, but Kentucky statute says, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we provided that service for
Kinda.
That's
That's,
not really the answer I want to give.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm going through this process is we're gonna get to a point where we're gonna have to make a decision. Do we want to send easement agreements out to the customers and ask them to sign that? And if they say no, we're not gonna sign it, then we'll have recourse to county, right? So, but it's important from a utility perspective of, how do you handle it? And so, I was actually looking at, Kentucky statutes earlier today on easements and agreements. And in essence, what it says is if the utility has property all the way up to the meter box, that's utility property, on someone's property, as long as you do it during normal business hours, you identify yourselves, and you're there to serve a purpose for which is to operate, maintain, repair, fix your property, you have the right to be on that property. That's what Kentucky statute says. But board members, if you notice, and I'm going to get into the tariffs a little bit here when I say this, one of the things I changed in the tariffs was, that I asked the board to approve is when you sign up for an account, you have to sign an easement agreement. That's part of the process. Because the easement agreement just gives us the right to come on the property to service what we own up to the meter box. So right now, there's no action from this board required on this. I just want to get the board up to speed on where we're at with it, but there will be future things to come along on that, and we're gonna have to think it through what's best for everybody. All right, Chairman, update the board on the building lease status for billing and options. Board, as you know, we're talking about our billing office, and then, of course, AWR operation is a different building. We're looking to pull all that together under one roof for a lot of good reasons. Right now, I've been talking with a number of folks about county buildings, whether it be the library or whether it be the business center. And again, as we're still in discussions, and I have nothing to come to this board to vote on tonight, but it's still in discussions. So stay tuned for that. I'm hopeful that I can have something for the board to consider in the near future.
How about anything that's gonna cost us more?
I agree. I understand.
You don't pay the rent on the building where you're at?
Yes.
Tim and I discussed, the usual sharing
Yes,
costs.
I'm saying, why don't we just, if we get something big enough to house everybody, split it, right?
Yeah, well, what it requires is I would ask this board to approve our board attorney to generate an MOA or an MOU, whichever way you want to call it, memorandum of agreement, where they'll agree to pay the board, so the district would lease the space, and AWR would pay us, or they deduct it from the invoice for which we pay them,
We live in Rockland, and there's
which we do now.
we,
We don't pay any utility.
No, we pay trash. There's that, we pay the rent, and then there's a trash and well, we pay. But no, it depends on what you negotiate, in the location, right? And it all comes down, that's what I'm, and so in full disclosure, what I've told the county is I said, look, I just need to know what spaces are willing to negotiate. And then, I'm not ready to negotiate, I want to know whether we release this, yes or no. And it has to be a long-term commitment. So stay tuned for that. Moving on to other new business. Colby Kirk, update the board on the bill payments and bank statements audit that you performed.
Yeah, I typed this up, I'll go through it for water and sewer both, but I'm gonna start this by saying I'm not an auditor.
Right.
I'm the treasurer of the board, and
Right.
as we learned in our training, the treasurer's supposed to review the bank statements and look at bank reconciliation on a regular basis, and that's not what I've done.
Right.
So I had requested 2 of the 18 items that were tested were automatic payments for utilities. Those were withdrawn out of our account prior to board approval. But we had kind of talked about this, and I know on the bills we approved this month, you have started estimating those ahead of time. And that way we have at least approved a payment to cover those costs, so that should not happen again. So other than that, I mean, there's no findings of misuse of funds. Everything was pretty reasonable from what I found for the
Well,
18.
thank you for performing that service for the people of Montgomery County. It's important, you know, PSC has these rules and requirements. It's important that we continue to follow up and do our due diligence on that. So with that, consider a motion to approve Prime AE to conduct groundwater engineering analysis and approve chairman to execute PSA for Prime AE proposal. So board members, I sent you a proposal from Prime AE for the groundwater. I can pull it up because I want to make sure I'm saying from memory, it was I want to say it was $4,000 for them to conduct a groundwater analysis. What does that mean? So what they're going to do is they're going to look at all the data, they're going to look at what happened, and they're going to come up with, here's the root cause of the problem, here's the recommended solution, and then based on that, then the next steps would be is we would have to extend through an addendum for them to design and go through the procurement process for design and a cost estimate to fix that problem for us, because we need a design and a cost estimate to go out and get funding to address that. Now I know I've told this board what I think the problem is. I have not shared that with them. I don't want to muddy the water, so to speak. I'm asking for this board to approve for them to do this. And this is important because it's the first step in solving the problem.
You said 4.
4,000.
4,800 termination for root cause. The total lump sum fee, what was that in the document?
Total lump sum. Let me pull it up. Let me get to it. Disinfection. Yeah. Let me find it here. Okay. All right, so Prime AE for $2,400, Prime AE will review, evaluate, define information provided by Montgomery County Water District and AWR, the existing base test sheets, log inflow parameters, so it's all in reservoir depths, analytical data, all that. Then for $6,000, coordination with operators, Prime will coordinate with AWR to complete the following items: conduct a workshop meeting with the operations veterans, gain operation of a treatment plant, and possible causes of water discoloration, attention will be given to different pH and temperature. They'll request sample results for iron, manganese, pH, alkalinity, temperature, turbidity, TDS, TSS, Langmuir's index. They'll conduct data analysis, assess certain areas of the distribution system could be prone to discolorization, verify sodium permanganate dose currently used in the water treatment plant, verify chemical feed flows, paste, establish preventive mitigation strategies. Then for $4,800, they prepare a report for findings, root cause, primary repair report. And then WIS portal setup is $1,500. So I stand corrected. Total lump sum fee of $14,700 to do all of that. Here's what's excluded: evaluation of mineral deposits and biofilms in the distribution system, sampling, laboratory analysis, and design recommended alternatives. So $14,700 to do all the things I just talked about. Now, what does that do for us? Once they get to this point and it gets in WRIS, it becomes a project. And the Big Sandy Gas Water Council approves it, then it becomes a project we go out and get funding for. So I'm asking the board to approve the next step, and that is to do this groundwater analysis. We've got to get past this step. agree it's a lot of money. But the real question we should be asking ourselves, and I know you've heard me say this before, is do we want a groundwater incident next year? Because it will happen. Do we or don't we? Or do we want to tell everybody we're going to fix the problem? You know what really bothers me, and I'm letting my feelings get the best of me. But what really bothers me is when I know the solution to a problem, but I can't fix it because I don't have the money to fix it. And that's what keeps me awake at night. And you know, I wish I had the time and the resources to do all this myself, but I don't. So the honest answer is, do I have $14,700 in the budget that I'm not going to spend? No. But do I want to leave this groundwater issue, leave it alone, and just let it rear its ugly head next year? No, I want to fix it. But I'll do what this board recommends, what this board wants. Thoughts, discussion?
I think the last thing people want is groundwater coming out of that.
I took several phone calls,
I do.
and, you know, I don't want groundwater, nobody wants groundwater. And aside from that, to fix the leak rate, because the only thing you can do to fix is flush the line, so you get all the water loss.
Well, it actually affects leak rate in a different way. The Langler index, I don't want to go down a hole too deep, but the Langler index, what Dr. Langler did in 1930 was he proved that water with a neutral pH of 7.0 could be corrosive. That's what the Langler index does. The water from the Tug River has an index value of -1.75 to -2.25. When you go above -0.3, it's corrosive. So when you're at -1.5 or higher, you're corroding the insides of your pipes. Anything that's metal, black iron. It doesn't hurt, your PVC, but it hurts copper. It hurts black iron. So it doesn't hurt stainless steel, but we don't have stainless steel system. So that's what it does. So it actually adds to your leak rate because it eats the joints. Is what it does. Now, is it safe to drink when you have a negative Langler index? Sure it is. It doesn't hurt you, but it attacks. It attacks metal because it's looking for calcium is what it's looking for. It's trying to find it, and that's why it's breaking down the metal to try to get that. So board,
So we can't possibly get to a point where we're asking for funds to fix this unless we get something.
We don't know what we're asking for yet.
Right,
yeah.
okay. I'll make the motion we approve this.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Consider a motion. We talked about that. Motion to approve removal of Cassandra Moore and add Helen Proctor as administrator for access to all Mark County Water District bank accounts. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm missing something here. So let me go back here for a second.
Okay.
Old business, I want to talk tariffs. Let me pull up. So at the last board meeting, and I'll just, it was on the agenda, I don't know why I'm not seeing it on this piece of paper, but it's old business. Board at our last meeting, special meeting, August 12th, the board approved a couple things. They approved for the what's called special non-reoccurring charges to increase. They also approved for the meter connection tap-on charge to be an actual cost. And I'm gonna go down through these and spend a little time on it because it's important. And they also approved for water loss to go from $2 per thousand to $4.25 per thousand. And that approval was based on a couple things. It was based on a legal review. It was also based on the PSC approval process. since that time, there's been a lot of discussion, and good discussion, on this. And I know, Nina at the time, said, no, Tim, I think it's cruel. And I understand that perspective, I understand that point of view. But I first want to address water tariffs from a couple of perspectives. This board is required by PSC to evaluate each aspect of the business, and it is a business, it's a quasi-government entity, utility, which is a business, and we are not in the business to make money, we're in the business to break even. We should have zero balance every year on our books. And so, one could ask the question, and there have been some that have asked this question, well, Tim, does AWR charge you any more if they go out and do a meter disconnect charge? Do they charge you more for any of the special non-reoccurring charges? The answer to the question is AWR doesn't charge us more. So then it begs the question, well, why would you raise rates for those things? So the real question that we should be asking ourselves is, from a revenue perspective, we charge customers $10.49.5 per thousand. That's what we charge. The problem we have is that $10.49.5 per thousand doesn't pay the cost to operate and maintain the system. So, we need to ask the question, and admittedly I went through this whole exercise, I don't know how many times. So ask yourself the question, well, how much does it cost? Because we know we have to put an AWR employee in a truck, so there's the cost of the employee. We have the cost of the truck, the cost of fuel, the cost of the insurance, the cost of the tools, the cost of any material that we need to go do, for example, special non-reoccurring charges. Now, what are these special non-reoccurring charges? It's such things as meter disconnect charge, a meter turn-on charge, a meter turn-on charge guaranteed same day, a meter read charge, a meter test charge. And what that is the customer requests us to test their meter, and we pull it, and we test it, and it tests bad, we don't charge them. But if it tests good, then the customer pays for that test, because the meter was good, there was nothing wrong with it. Service call investigation, meter relocation, which is actual cost, meter service damage, which is actual cost, meter reconnection charge, meter reconnection charge guaranteed same day. I went through, I should say I asked Todd to go through, and he provided me this information. The special non-reoccurring charges, there were 354 charges in 2024 that added up to $8,000 roughly for 2024. So that tells me approximately 10% of the customers use this service. It tells me 90% don't use it. But I know when I look at the charges, right now for a meter disconnect we charge $20, but I know it costs us $30. I know that. So the question is, well, who's paying the other 10? Well, the answer is that the people that's not using the service. Somebody's paying that. It's not free. So, Nina, in my heart and my mind, what's cruel is to ask somebody that's not getting the service to pay for that. Because somebody's paying that cost. The cost is there.
There's also a cost for being late. So anyone who is late, there's quite a bit of late charges every month. And not all those get turned off, but there is money there that is
Well, do you not think it's cruel to ask somebody, you think it's not cruel to ask somebody to pay the cost of that person when they're not receiving the service that that person, I mean, that's saying, hey, Tim, I'm gonna go buy a house and I want you to pay for it.
No, it's not.
It is like that because I'm
I
paying,
don't see that.
I'm paying a bill for a service I'm not getting. That's wrong.
Well, thank God you're not getting that service.
And so, you know, but here's the bigger story of all this. And here's why I went through this exercise. I went through the tariffs, both sanitation and water, and I went through it, and I asked myself a fundamental question. Where in the tariffs are we losing money? And Todd will can attest, when I sat down and went through this, I said, I'm not interested in talking about the $10.49. Not interested in raising that. I'll go to my grave fighting to keep that at $10.49, or go to my grave trying to lower it. That's right. I want to reduce it. But here's the real story. PSC, what they do is they look at your financials at the end of every year. In January, we got a report. In January, we got to report what our financials were for the previous year. And if we're in the arrears, $400,000, they're going to want to know, well, what are you doing to recover that? Where are you losing money? How are you going to replace that?
So we're gonna say we're getting it from tourism loans.
No, what I'm going to say is I'm going to say we have evaluated the utility, and for those areas for which we know we're losing money, and PSC, you make us prove we're losing money in those areas, then we're going to have people pay what it costs, because PSC rule says you cannot make a profit. They have to pay what it costs. Now, what I am going to say to the good people of Martin County, I will never ask anybody to pay for a service they're not receiving. That is wrong, and it's cruel in my mind. I'll never do it. I'll never do it. But in this water tariff, one of the changes that I made, that this board approved August the 12th, and it's back up again, is for meter connections, we were charging $1,000 flat rate. It didn't care what it cost. $1,000 flat rate. Well, if the meter's going, if the pipe is right here and the meter box is going right there, it don't cost $1,000 to do that. Why would I charge somebody $1,000 to do that when it's going to cost me $300 or $400? PSC rule says you have to charge cost, actual cost. Now, on the other hand, if the main line is across the road and we have to jack and bore underneath the road and we have to run a line 100 feet up this road and put a meter box in there, I guarantee it costs more than $1,000. Well, is it fair for the ratepayers to pay for that person's water line run? Because the district pays for it no matter what, right? And that's what I'm saying. Everybody should have to pay what it costs. And that's why I changed it to actual cost, because that actually lines up with PSC rules. And changed it from 1,000. Now, if you remember, in 2022, PSC raised their rates on this district, and neither of you were here when that happened.
I wasn't on the board.
2022,
Oh,
you were.
2022, yeah.
You're on the board. But here's what PSC did. In 2022, these special non-recurring charges, they were $40. They were double. And so what PSC did, they raised the rates on everybody, and they cut the non-recurring charges in half. I don't know what the logic was behind that. I think they said, well, okay, you're generating more people understand a couple things, and I said this when I first got on this board. The number one thing to me is that we do the right thing. That's number one. And the right thing is, so when I stand before my maker, I can say I did the right thing.
How many of these do we swap out in a month?
I think we just went through it this week, we had 90, is that what we're starting off with?
So we start with 98 a month.
90 a month.
Turn off, you mean turn off their water?
I think that's what we started with this week.
No.
Good.
I don't know what we ended up with.
Because, I mean, we see the shut-off, turn off, we see the shut disconnects for not paying at 28.
Well, that might, by the time we made calls, we might have got down to that number.
That was probably, probably July, but
We start at 450 to 500 late notices every month. And then shutting cut off, we usually have between 80 and 90. And then when we start cutting off, that's when everyone influxes in to pay. So that drops significantly. But yeah, we printed 90 service orders.
But it shows that it already is punitive. What we are charging it is punitive enough to make people come in. They don't want the water shut off.
And the other item that I want to talk about tonight is, right now we charge folks $2 per 1,000 gallons when they have a leak. $2 per 1,000. It costs the district, now, when I say cost, I'm talking about to operate and produce. I'm not talking about to operate and maintain the district. To produce 1,000 gallons of water, it costs us $4.25. So, ask yourself the fundamental question. If we're charging folks who have leaks $2 per 1,000, who's paying the other $2.25? Somebody is. Everybody pays. Well, so it goes back to the fundamental question once again. Is it right to charge somebody who doesn't have a leak and ask them to pay for people who do? No, that's cruel. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's why, and if you look up PSC rules, it says that you should adjust the water loss rate cost. You should adjust it annually, is what it says. That's what you should do. So that's what this does. It puts it at $4.25 per 1,000, which is what it costs. That way, if you have a leak, again, we'll give a credit. If you have a leak, you fix it. It's after the meter, so it's on the ratepayer to fix it. Fix it, bring your repair in to the billing office, show it, and we'll credit back based on your 2 or 3 month average use, and we'll credit that back. And if you're hooked on the sanitation, then we'll deduct that from your sanitation bill as well.
And I think a lot of people were confused. They have not read the whole story because it wasn't a rate increase. There
No,
was
it wasn't a rate
mention of
increase.
increase. And the only problem that I have is increasing the amount on people who are having to be disconnected and reconnected.
I sympathize and I share your concern. I really do.
Are there resources like live heat for people?
There is no live block right now. We're working on that,
Yeah.
but there's no, maybe like.
So board members, the only thing else I changed in the tariff was I added that each prospective customer desiring water service were required to sign a utility service water contract, and I added and easement agreement. I added that language to it because it's important that we start doing that and get that. So that's what's been added. I apologize. I spent so much time on this, but it's near and dear to me, and I just want the public to know that this board is trying to do everything right. And I just want to be armed with the argument so that I can go before PSC and fight that fight. Because I do not want to see a rate increase on the $10.49.
So if you're a customer who doesn't have a leak at their house and you pay your bill every month, is it going to change?
No. No. Water leaks affects 10% of our customers, and non-reoccurring charges affects 10% of our customers. So board, do I have this board's approval? And I know we voted on a special meeting, but I want to bring it up again. Do I have this board's approval to move forward with our legal evaluation and for these tariff changes?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'm a second.
All in favor? Aye.
No,
I understand, it's okay. It's okay. All right, so with that, consider a motion convene to go into,
We got one more on new business.
okay, I'm sorry.
You got E on new business, which is, I don't know, it's on.
Oh, yes, yes, sir, I got it. Under old business, KDOW meeting was conducted. Is that, no, that's not it.
Motion to approve to cancel the old contract for number 12192 for the Hines Warfield Road and enter with a new agreement.
Yes. So the board, under the previous chair, approved, and the chair signed an agreement for that project, and now they won't recognize that signature because that person no longer on the board and asking me to re-sign that document.
Document hasn't changed materially at all.
No. But also, it was also, but also I wanted,
It has the engineer listed as Kentucky Engineering Services.
yes, it had Kentucky Engineering Services listed, and I want to change that to Prime Navy.
And what project is this?
It's the,
Hines Warfield Road relocation project.
The one that replaced the bridge over here.
Correct.
was that, 2031 and Route 40? Route 2031 and Route 40.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Now, moving on. Consider a motion to convene in the closed executive session. That door should be unlocked. I hope it is. And the reason why I'm asking this is to discuss board attorney new hire and interview the new board attorney. So do I have a motion to go into closed executive session for a short period of time? Do I have a
do
second?
we want to let the people speak before?
Oh, is there people that want to speak?
Yeah, there's a list.
Okay, yeah, please, I'm sorry.
I was like, can we flip it?
Okay, so, Della Adams Castle.
That's me.
Okay.
Well, you answered one of my questions, and one of those was, we had heard that there would be a rate increase. And you've answered that there will not be a rate increase, which I'm pleased to hear. As you know, and Lena has been a wonderful advocate for people who are struggling in this county, who just can't afford more on their water. And so I appreciate this board taking that into consideration. But I do have, another question. I had spoken with Todd, I believe, a few months ago. I'm the dairy driving up the street, and I have a unique situation. My business is strictly carry out and drive through only. My mother purchased the business in '91 from Richard Young, and she had negotiated with a previous board and Niles Combo to get a set rate on her sewage, because I would say at least 50% of our water usage does not go through our sewer. It's not to be treated at the sewer plant at all. I sell bags of ice, cups of ice, water mixes with our soft drinks. It's what's called a post mix, which most businesses use. You can't make a product on pre-mix. It's just not feasible. We have steam tables in the kitchen, which use water and evaporate. We use water for cooking. Everything we have goes out on paper. We have the railing with the flowers that we put in a couple of summers ago. We use water, doesn't go through the sewage system. And my lovely husband, who I haven't addressed this before now because he's been going through cancer treatment, but he's wanted to take a pressure washer to work, and I said, oh my God, no. I said, because my sewer bill is now bigger, I said, they've done away with my flat rate. And any water that's on the ground, not only am I paying more for the water usage, but my sewage as well. So I'm asking the board, which I understand that it's the same people on both boards, to consider maybe charging me a percentage on my sewage bill, because not exactly a car wash, I'm not asking you to do away with any sewage fees, I'm not asking that because, we do use the service. But I would say a good 50% or more of our water usage goes out to our customers.
And so what was the agreed upon, rate before?
I think it was around $56 a month, and, it was just a flat rate.
Yeah.
They didn't even do a percentage. They're like, well, and this was discussed with my mom in '92. They're like, how are you with this rate? And mom's like, that's fine. And, I've been out of town traveling with Kevin. We go out of state for a lot of his, scans and oncology appointments. And so I haven't been able to be here before now. But I was just asking the board to consider what they think would be fair.
Yeah.
Because the only other business I know in this county that is similar to mine is the Fletchers that opened on Blacklog. And they also have a drive-through carry-out type of business, but I think they may not be on city sewer. I'm not sure. But
Yeah, so those businesses like yours probably has a septic tank and gray water goes into a gravity line, is that true?
yes,
Okay.
Tim, if this is a sewage issue, it needs to be addressed in the sanitation meeting.
Yeah, I agree.
okay. I didn't know how you wanted, and I mean, I can wait until the other meeting.
Yeah, we need to take it up during the sanitation meeting, it immediately follows this meeting, the sanitation, so.
I think at the least we should commit to looking at a comparison of what sewer rates do for businesses in the surrounding areas.
You know,
I know Pikeville does a special rate for car washes, but I don't know about businesses that I can.
I'm not asking for anything unfair or something. I'm trying to be cost effective. Before the meeting, it was discussed that my prices are affordable, for our customers. And as you know, you're running the water board as a business. Anytime you have rate increases, when your overhead increases, so does the price to your customer. And, my mother didn't believe in getting rich off of this community. My mother believed in just making a living. She passed 5 years ago, left the business to me, and I'm trying to carry on that tradition of just treating my customers fairly, giving them a good product at a good price.
Well, let's take it up at the sanitation meeting, but I tell you this, we will do the right thing. The
Okay.
question is, what is the right thing?
We may need to look into what other.
That's fine, it's fine.
Exactly. All right, so, Mr. Gunn?
You just about answered one of my questions there about the accounting process. So what I'm a little bit interested in is the cost accounting on going out to pull a meter, reinstall a meter, so forth. I didn't know how you came up, when I say you, I'm not talking about Tim. I mean, how's the board come up with the cost? I know the PSC is gonna say cost only is all you can recoup. Okay, we don't operate that way, but anyway, I mean, are you, how detailed are you in determining the cost?
Yeah, so what we have to do is we have to say, okay, Mark County is, if they go from the shop to the furthest point away, it's this, to the closest point is this, how much time is that? That's labor. How much cost is that in the truck? We know what that is. How much fuel is that? For each point, we know what that is.
Yeah.
And then we have to, is there tools involved? What's the cost of that? Is there materials involved? What's the cost of that? We have to take all that, and for the furthest and the closest points we average, and then we have to figure out what's our average cost.
Okay, you're doing exactly what I was curious if you are, so you answered that question, okay. Anyway, a couple other questions. One is you brought up, or calls, when you're talking about the hose, the pipe that's a little bit limber pipe, it's lingering, and it's not secured, and it may cause a bearing to go out. Is that in place now?
No, it's,
Okay.
the system was designed by Bell, was installed by Pace Constructors for raw water intake, river pump, right? And I got on the board in September, and in October, I went out and walked all the infrastructure in Mark County for that matter. But I went out there and I seen it, and I was like, well, that's the ASME code violation right there. I looked on the ground and see electrical wires laying on the ground, so that's an NEC code violation. I'm an engineer, I know these things. So what I did was I generated a punch list, and I gave it to Bell Engineering and said, here's everything that's wrong out there that I can see. Now, what scares me is what I can't see.
Yeah.
So, I'm pleased to say that Bell Engineering, on the raw water intake, presented, or sent me yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, I sent it out to the board, I thought I did. Maybe if I didn't, tell me, I'll give it to you. But they did a third-party evaluation on raw water intake. In essence, what the third party said was the project was never completed correctly, wasn't done right, and therefore that's why it doesn't work. And so, and I do all that, and that's fine, but it's good that the third party's engaged and folks are working to fix these issues. The sad news in all that is as the board knows and as the community knows, this board approved and we have filed lawsuit against Big Sandy Ad because they are the administrator, they're the buyer of the raw water intake. And by the time this is done, the good people of Martin County will have suffered $1 million in damages. By the time this is done.
Who did the board enter into a contract with somebody to perform a service?
No. And see, now here's a big policy. We don't,
Why?
and that's something I want the people of Martin County to know. The money doesn't come to the board. We don't handle any money.
I understand that.
But we're a third-party beneficiary.
But a lot of people do not.
A lot of people do not understand that, though.
Well, yeah, that's true, and,
They think we handle, no, we don't handle it.
it costs us,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
And so, but anyway, what you were talking about with the pipe that was loose and everything is not in place, is that correct?
It was in place, but what Todd touched on is it has been fixed. Now it has a support bracket that supports that 12-inch diameter flex hose that comes down off, so
What?
that load is not being put on the glue to the pump.
When the
It's
pipe
never
was,
run yet, it's never been run. It's
We're
not.
still running with the
Yeah.
well, when the pipe and all that was installed, was it installed according to the blueprints that the engineer drew? Or was the engineer that designed all that, was
The
he
engineer
negative?
didn't design it with the right supports to begin with.
Would you care to repeat that?
The engineer did not design it with the right supports to begin with. There's an ASCD code violation out of the gate.
Oh, okay, that's, what was our cost then to replace that?
We haven't spent a penny to replace it yet because that's gonna be Big Sandy Ad's cost. Big
Okay,
Sandy Ad's the
okay.
buyer, not the district.
All right, we're on track. Okay, we're on track. Last thing I have is, being around the little community here, I've had a couple of people say, wonder when they're gonna sell those trucks, those Ford trucks, you got all the new Dodges and everything. When are you gonna sell those trucks?
Let me talk just a couple minutes real quick about trucks. We took 4 trucks out of service, Todd.
We got
4
4 out.
out of service. One truck has 178,000 miles on it and the engine's blown. And then we have one truck that has 200 and some thousand miles on it and the transmission's out of it. We have another truck that has 275,000 miles on it and it is shot. And so what this board needs to do, and we haven't done it yet, but we will, is it's considered surplus. So at some point, because it's surplus, we will advertise it for sale.
Only one of those
That's right.
vehicles for water district shows.
Or one vehicle's water district and the other 3 are AWRs.
Yours.
Okay, I didn't know that.
The other 3 are what?
AWRs, because see, AWR provides so much resources and the district provides so much resources. So we'll have 1 truck for surplus.
I mean, I don't care, but you know, so wonder when, that's all I'm saying. I live in a.
Right now they're sitting because they're not roadworthy, they're not
Yeah.
functional. So enough on that. So, did I answer all your questions?
Well, you did on that. I'm just kind of curious now, you've got all these new trucks, which I'm glad you do. Who's paying the maintenance cost on these things? Are we paying it or is Alliance paying it, which means we're paying them through the?
Well, the honest answer is the ratepayers are paying it, but let me tell you a quick story, and I'm not good at telling short stories. But when I got on this board, one of the first things I did was I looked at everything financially. And at the time, we have a joint operating agreement with Crescent City Utility Commission. And we were selling water to the prison, to PCU City, for $4.05 a gallon, per 1,000 gallons. It was costing us $4.25 per 1,000 gallons to produce it. So we're losing 20 cents board's approval. Now we're getting paid what prison pays them, we get paid. So they don't make money off of us. We're getting paid $7.95 per thousand, which is the wholesale price of water. And now the district is generating $138,500 more per year off of that contract negotiation, and that is more than enough money to pay for those new trucks. And that's how we pay.
And we're leasing, we didn't buy.
We lease them, that's right, and we can turn those trucks in every year if we want to. But we're leasing them, not we buy. But at the end of the lease, we own them. Just so you know, it's a little different from most leases. And so, the honest answer is,
Yeah,
the federal government's paying for those trucks.
we are, we are.
But
You're fine, you're fine.
so it's all good. So moving on, I hate to run, Dick, but we gotta move on. June Ward,
She left.
okay. Are you Jeff Ward?
No, he left
He
too.
left too.
She has to be at work at 4 in the morning.
Oh, I'm
They go to bed by 8 o'clock.
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologize to him on my behalf. I wish I could have got to him sooner. J.E. Charles?
That's me.
Okay.
Two comments. Number one, talking about the cutoffs. Every year for the past 3 years, I receive a cutoff notice despite the fact that I pay my bill every month. The only time I haven't done that was when I was in a coma in a hospital for 3 months in 2023. And I got Jeff Ward to pay my bill for me. Well, Jeff Ward paid my bill for me while I was unconscious. But every year they pull that stunt. And I don't know if you guys like to read a whole lot, but as Ian Fleming once said, once is happenstance, twice is suspicious, 3 times is enemy action. So there's that for that. I'm going to have to go back. Obviously, I'm going to have to go back to paying my bill with a check instead of paying in cash because they pulled it again last month. The other thing I'd like to say is you have quite a few people in Martin County that are on Social Security, retirees. I'm one of them. And I don't understand how the water department can't make a profit when it is charging 2 to 3 times more than all the neighboring counties are. When I lived in Logan County, West Virginia, my water bill was $22 a month. When I left there, it was $26 a month. They built a second sewer over there, and that raised it to $36 for the sewer, which was still lower than the $88 a month we pay here. I think Johnson County pays about 1/3 what we pay. How is it you can't provide something for a competitive rate to every place around? We have the highest rates, not just this state, in 35 states. I spent an afternoon looking that sucker up.
Yeah.
And I know a little bit about water department problems because all the problems that you have here, I covered in Logan County, West Virginia with the community of man for 20 years. They had the exact same problems you have here. The biggest difference is they use Summit Engineering, you use Bell Engineering. I'm familiar with water department problems, I'm familiar with line breaks. In man, they don't even know where some of the older lines were. They would have an infiltration problem, they thought, and then they would dig it up and find out that the old terracotta pipes had crumbled away. So I know a little bit about this stuff. And I hear this everywhere I go, why are we paying so much for water compared to everybody around us?
I share your concern. When I moved here from Cincinnati, and this is the honest God's truth, I moved here from Cincinnati. Now keep in mind, I had a big home, an in-ground pool, hot tub, and I was consuming 4 times as much water as I do here. And when I got my first monthly bill, it was over $200. And I wasn't even living in the house at the time. And I about fell out of my chair. I was like, because in Cincinnati, I was paying $160 a quart for water and sewer, and I was consuming 4 times as much water with the pool and the house and the hot tub and all the outdoor kitchen and all that stuff. And here I'm consuming less, and I'm paying more. And so I fell out of my chair, and my wife will tell you, and I prayed about it a long time, about a year actually. I prayed about it before I agreed to but I know how to fix these problems, and they're gonna get fixed. Now, they're gonna get fixed tomorrow? No. But I have a plan and a vision. 5 years from now, we're gonna be talking a different story. Next year this time, we're gonna be talking a different story. Why? Because our board attorney will tell you, Brian will tell you, and he said this to me many times already. Don't you think you need to slow down a little bit? And I told him, I said, brother, I'm just getting warmed up. You know, I share your concerns, I agree with you.
I would suggest this too, like any business, volume dictates what you have, or what you have to
Absolutely.
charge. And we could produce a whole lot more water, and we could sell a whole lot more water, but we don't have customers to sell it to. It's just like if you run any kind of business, let's say you've got so many square feet, but you have an electric bill, you have a water bill, you have employees to pay, you have same expense as somebody who may be selling twice as much.
Yeah, I understand that. I went to college. I know all about Adams Law of Supply and Demand. Johnson County has the law of supply and demand too. I also understand that the water district in this county was run into the ground before you guys got aboard. I know that. I'm just saying, it ain't adding up. And I appreciate what you're doing, trying to straighten things out. But still, the reality is, we have some huge problems here.
Yes, we do.
We recognize that. That's
And,
great.
and it's great that we're trying to approach those things tactically. But you, like Ms. McCoy said, you can't forget about the fact that there are people trying to get by on $1,200 a month on Social Security. And they just can't afford, that you pay your bill, they tell you you didn't pay your bill, you have to pay double. You get a notification in the mail, they're gonna add another fine on that. And it's all you can do to pay your regular bill because you're paying 3 times what people in Johnson County are paying.
The sad part of all this is, if we don't address the things like the special non-recurring costs, if we don't fix that, I can't fight the fight with PSC, because you know what PSC will do to us? They're gonna say, you're losing money, and we're gonna increase the rates on everybody. That's what they'll do, and there will be nothing that anybody can do about it, because it'll be PSC mandated, and you'll lose that fight if you try to fight it. So I'd rather go into the argument, we evaluate our finances, this is how we're gonna address it, this is where we're losing, it's costing us more money, we're losing money. But again, there will not be a rate increase on the per 1,000 gallon, no. There's not. But I appreciate the position, hey Tim, we recognize you're wanting to recover costs where it's costing us more, but it hurts people. I get it. But if I don't do this, then the pain's gonna be far more worse.
Sure is.
So with that, and I apologize, I'm having a difficult time reading this, Blackburn?
Doug,
Doug?
that'd be me.
Okay.
Hey, only reason I come here tonight just to see how many people will show up to dispute this raise on the water bill. So, I got my answer, but you've brought up so much. The water board, I appreciate what you're doing. Alliance, you're here to stay. But there's stuff, like you're bringing up money from the prison. The water lines can't handle the pressure, pump it all the way up, or it blows up every time.
Yeah.
And, the tanks, we gotta get a tank for ourselves up there to pump in, cause if we don't, it ain't gonna make no money going in Prestonburg's water. And up there, when that line blows on the new Route 3, it fills the sinks and the toilets at the prison on the inmates full of mud. That tank should be, if that line blows, that big tank should be cleaned out and flushed. It shouldn't push that mud on through it. That's like our tanks on top of the hill. They hadn't been inspected in 15 years. And they went down in it and it was just corroded up and stuff.
You bring up a couple really good points. One I want to touch on, project number 6 that went for Kentucky W Water to develop pump station and line replacement. That's a project that we're asking Kentucky W actually, another Connecticut Waters project to do that. But it's gonna be to do all the tanks, because they're all due, they all need done. Again, that's a grant that we're asking through that program to give us the money to do that. So we recognize these problems. The problem is, when you look at the financials on the district, we take in approximately $3 million on the water side per year. That $3 million is what it cost us to operate and maintain. That's not to do any capital projects, we can't afford that. If we have any big problems, we can't afford that to fix it. But the $3 million we take in, that's what it takes us to operate and maintain. That's what it costs. Now, what Vernon touched on is so important. These projects that we've got looking at for the pipeline, one of the things it'll do is it'll open the door for more ratepayers. One of the ways you get rates down is you produce more water, but you have more customers. So the more people that pay into the system, the more revenue you generate, the better, the lower the bill can be. And that's where we need to get. We need to get to a point where we have enough people paying, enough generating enough revenue to where we can actually lower the bill. Because PSC says that we operate at cost. And the thing is, if we were doing everything we're supposed to be doing, we'd be in debt a lot more money than we are. And that's the sad part. We're not doing everything we're supposed to be doing. And that's part that bothers me. Just like, we're spending $65,000 to change out the filter media at the water plant for clarifier number 2 and filters 3, 4, 5, and 6. $65,000 we're spending for that. You know when the last time that filter media was changed out? This is anthracite media, which is a coal-based media, that when the water comes out of the clarifier, it goes through that and it filters it. It takes out impurities, takes out sediment, and it improves the quality of the water. Last time that filter media was changed out was 2007. It's been in there 18 years. Now in my world, and I'm a water treatment specialist, 18 years for anthracite media, I've never heard of that. That's unbelievable to me. It's went way too long. And that's why I'm a firm believer we're going to do everything we can to keep rates down, but we also need to do everything we can to improve the quality of water we give our customers. And there's a balance there that we have to maintain. But I appreciate you coming and sharing your comments.
There's, say the mixers, they was down for 15 years. 3 years ago, got them back running. And we was losing 75% of water 3 years ago. So, they've made accomplishments by cutting that down. But there's just so much that you can do. But, like raising the water bill, people can't do that. I mean, $10, that could be supper. So it is what it is, but I just like for people to know what's going on, not just this year. I like for them to show up and hear,
I would too.
You probably be the next governor.
I'm not the next governor. I'm not in politics. I know sorry.
Well, you need to, because you can blow up an onion sandwich.
We've never had a good one in the state. You could do it first.
God put me here for one purpose, and that's to solve Martin County's water and sanitation problems.
And you know what? And you're doing a great job, because our last chairman, he's lucky to hook up a water hose, and he's my friend. God's honest truth. If anybody knows, never mind. But you're doing a great job. You've got great people working with you, but people just don't understand, and you're going to get those phone calls.
I get them.
Well, and we also have to play a different game than a lot of these cities around us do, because like Mickey calls them the P-towns. Paintsville, Prestonsburg, and Pikeville, they have city-owned water treatment facilities. Right. And those aren't regulated by the Public Service Commission. And so their city council or their water district can oversee and make changes at will, and they only care what's in the city limits. So once it leaves, in Pike County, they have the Mountain Water District. They're at the mercy of whatever Pikeville sells in the Water Act. And then they have to go to PSC and approve a rate. And so it's harder for us because we have to navigate in that stricter regulatory environment. Like, I know I worked a lot more in Harlan County before I moved home. Harlan, the city, would sell all kinds of water out into the county to the county's water district. And that was money that was raised by the city. And so every month at the city council meeting, they could, say, oh, we sold $100,000 worth of water this month to Black Mountain. We have an excess of $70,000. Let's transfer that to the Blacktop Fund.
Oh, yep.
So, and your cities can do that. And so we're just kind of set up at a little bit of a disadvantage and not being, and honestly though, it's probably better for everybody that it is this way, but that's why some of those other communities are able to drive down costs. Like the rate that you might pay in the city limits in one of those towns is different than what they're having to pay out in the county.
Yeah, one of the things that hurts us on the water side is we have 230 miles of distribution pipe, and we have 3,450 ratepayers. And so, the reason why the folks can charge cheaper is because they have a higher populace count by area. So they have more ratepayers by area. We don't have that here. So if you look at their budgets, they may be, they may be taking in $3 million a year for the same infrastructure, but they have 6,000 ratepayers instead of 3,450, so everybody pays 60% of what we pay. And so I can't fix populating Martin County, but what I can do is I can get us to a point to where we're wholesaling water to other areas. So we're generating and selling water and producing revenue that way so that we can lower the people's bills in Martin County, and that's my goal.
Well, the infrastructures of the other counties are by a river. If you Prestonburg, Painesville, there's a river. So if we don't have, they don't have to pump water over the line that runs from Kermit over. It's broken too from a few years ago from flood, so we can't get water from them, because that's an easy thing to do for Warfield side over there to get water to them when we're having an issue over here.
Yeah, but I wanna do sell water to other places like Kermit, and like Spicy Mountain and.
Well, are we still paying Floyd County for water to the old Route 3 or side of Zip Zone, the old way all the people up there is on?
Not as long as we can supply to the
Right,
prison,
so
that
the-
also supplies.
Yeah, so the contract says that if they backfeed us, we pay them.
Yeah.
And we had the pumps go down, we talked about tonight, those two pumps went down, they may have backfed us, for 1 or 2 days?
2 days.
2 days.
We haven't paid Prestonsburg in over a year. For the last year, they paid us.
That's good.
Yeah, so we're on the right track, it's just,
I know we used to pay them almost $5,000 a month,
yeah, no.
and now, if you said that, it's,
They're
that's
paying us
progress.
between 31 and 38,000.
But that's one of our biggest money makers is there. I mean, that's what we need to focus on there, is getting that there where we can. I mean, federal government needs to pay for our water.
Okay, well, thank you, Doug, for.
But I can go on all night. That's the reason we have a 5-minute rule here
That's
now,
right.
is it's costing money.
Yeah. Madison.
Hello board and hello Martin County residents that are here in this room today. If you don't know me, my name is Madison Mooney. I support the work that Martin County Concerned Citizens do here in the county regarding any and all water related work, and I also work for a nonprofit organization known as Like and Knowledge. During the special board meeting, I referred to you all about this tire survey. I sent an email out regarding the survey. It's due at the end of the month. And just for the general audience and hear what I'm speaking about, during the last board meeting, I've been working with Nathan Alexander, who works for the Division of Water, representing the Big Sandy Basin, which is the Big Sandy River, the Labaza, and the Tug. And we're right now doing this huge survey across the state of Kentucky about tire debris and removal. And the goal of this is to get as many people across the state to fill out this survey and talking about the stressors around all these tires and debris that is in our rivers and waterways, in hopes that we can get more support on the state level when it comes to getting different types of equipment and machinery, especially some of the things that Friends of the Tuck Fork is able to have because of the DEP and the REAP program, which is like the Hydrotrek and some other really interesting gears that help make tire removal easier for us. And so wanted to remind you all about that survey, make sure you all got that email, in hopes that you all can try to fill it out, share it amongst any of your friends. And for the residents here that are listening, I have a social media page, Facebook. My name is Virginia Mooney. I've pinned a video that our president, Pete Runyon, did regarding the call out for everyone to fill out this survey in hopes that we can get more support on the state side when it comes to our cleanup efforts, not just for Friends in Tug Fork, but across all the different nonprofits and watershed nonprofits that are out there trying to clean our source water. And wanted to invite again, because I know we won't see each other until the end of the month, but Friends of the Tug Fork is having 3 cleanups in the month of September, September 3rd, 18th, and 26th. September the 18th is going to be an interesting day because we are hoping that we can get some House representatives and senators to come and observe this gear that we utilize to pull these tires out of the river. And even though you may not be able to physically come, but if you want to just come and see how we do this work, please reach out to me. Again, Facebook, Virginia Mooney, or I can give you my business card about that. You already answered my questions about Foggy. I just wanted to make sure about that application. And wanted to also to report to the board, again with the special meeting, I was talking about the Mountain Drinking Water Project. So we've talked with our team earlier this month in terms of like planning the community report back. And for the audience in here that doesn't know, the Mountain Drinking Water Project was a project that brought me home almost 5 years ago in terms of like coming home and helping my community around water work at large. And right now with the University of Kentucky and Martin County Concerned Citizens and our other partners, we're hoping that we can plan our community report out regarding the results of the water testing we have done around disinfection byproducts. That's the only thing that we tested for, disinfection byproducts. And our goal is to hopefully do these report outs on October, either sometime between the week of October 6th through the 10th or October the 13th through the 17th. There's no official date yet, but my goal is to have 2 report out locations. One's going to be on this side of the hill, like we like to call the INS side, and then the other meeting's going to be on the other side of the hill in Warfield, just to make sure everyone has an opportunity and there's enough room and seats for folks to come and listen to this report out, because this is not just a report out about, you know, what we discovered. It's a longer conversation, which I've expressed to the board before, about the action around taking this data and helping our system when it comes to the longevity of our infrastructure. And I know you made comments on the website and the board packet. I wanted to see, if possible, if Alliance or the volunteers from the board, whoever's going to work with Alliance when it comes to the website, I would love to be like another set of hands, because as someone that referenced that website all the time and has been doing research around our water story here for almost 8 years, there's this thing that I've been creating called the Martin County Water Resilience Toolkit. And this toolkit, like the board has already heard, but this toolkit is about water knowledge all the way from the local level to the federal level, and things broken down for residents in our community to help them, not just to bring knowledge and awareness, but also like supporting like what work is being done within our community, broken down on a different level, like taking the board packets, taking the conversations, taking the big meetings that have been happening on state and local level conversations, and making it easier for people to digest and learn. And I've been documenting all these conversations and questions that's been happening in this space today that really can help me amplify this toolkit to a whole nother level. And so with the website part, if you all are interested in me somehow tagging along in the course of developing that and figuring out a way to get these board packets online, that would be great.
But listen, Madison, we appreciate everything you're doing in Martin County. I know it's, I've actually looked at some of the pictures of the tire cleanup and it was impressive.
Yeah, the tire cleanup for the month of August, we were able to remove 615 tires in 2 days.
Wow, that's impressive.
And we got cold tires that was probably about this high on me, and I'm like 5'3", so.
You know, I'll leave it to Colby and
Oh, yeah, I
and Nina.
already had you.
So, you know, please, you know, and all the help we can get. Okay.
Yeah, and I just feel like with the work that I'm doing and how I reference these board packets very religiously when it comes to what I'm crafting with this Martin County Water Resilience Toolkit. And Colby brought up Harlan County, and so that's one of our other counties that we work in when it comes to this project. I've been able to have a more deeper understanding about our system on both sides, sewer and water, because of how these boards meetings are and how these board packets are structured from 2022 on. And so I just want to make sure when I cite information, when I reference projects, when I talk about certain things, that the people know where that's coming from. It is not coming from the lens of Madison Mooney, it's not coming from the lens of Martin County Concerned Citizens or Lycan, it's coming from the source. So that's why I'm very apt to help with the website. Thank you.
All right, so, I think that's all of our.
We have the sheriff, he,
Oh,
Hey, I didn't sign
Yeah.
up to speak.
go ahead, Sheriff.
I would like to get a contact number of someone that I can call, that I don't have to go through press 1, press 2, press 5, because I don't have time for that. I have reported numerous water leaks. I'm all over the county. My job, probably postal worker, mail carrier is probably the only one that puts more miles on the vehicle at these haulers than I do.
Yeah.
But there are several water leaks right now that I can tell them about. There's a leak just before you get to Zephyr Family Junior on Milo. You know, it hasn't been raining, there's water coming up through the asphalt, so as Sherlock Holmes would say, that's clue.
Right.
But there's been numerous times that I've reported to them, body shop curve over there, I don't know if it's ever fixed. I've mentioned it to them multiple times, they said it's not city water. I mean, I don't know why suddenly it started coming up there a year ago.
Well, Sheriff, I'll give you my contact information, you just report it to me, and I'll give it to Todd, and I'll make sure that everything gets fixed.
Okay, because like I said, I'm up all these hollers, look at these roads, and if it hasn't rained for 3 weeks, and all of a sudden you got water coming up through the asphalt, it's usually a water leak.
And I'm the type, you know, I don't answer my phone as often as I probably should, but if you text me or email me, I'll text or email you back pretty quick, and I'll get on it.
All right, I appreciate it.
But I'll give you my business card.
Thanks.
If you don't have time to stick around, I'll leave it up there for you, you can just grab it, as well. The cell number on this is good, the email is my corporate email, but you feel free to use it, or I can give you a personal email as well. But thank you for that, I appreciate that. You know, the more help we can get in the community, the better we can respond to everybody's needs. All right, so with that, do we have any other, guest speakers? Okay. So can I get a motion considered to convene in a closed executive session, and the closed executive session is so that we can, meet, interview, and talk to, the attorney. We'll meet in this room here, if everybody wants to sit tight, I don't think we'll be long. Of course, I've said that before, and it's taken longer than I thought, so bear with me on that.
I don't believe him no more.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?